Hi, I'm Ksenia, and today I want to tell you the story of the Uranus Moon placement. Now, I want to tell this story from the perspective of one of my clients, and her name will be used with permission. This is the story of Trish. Now, Trish came to me about a month ago, and she was experiencing a great deal of trauma with her mother, and there had been clashes happening with her mother for the past 6 months or so, and she was starting to get very distressed by these clashes and very upset. She was a loving daughter who wanted to maintain a healthy relationship with her mother, but the clashes were getting out of hand. And so I looked at Trish's chart to try and ascertain, well, what was going on here. Now, I probably should take a step back and explain a little bit more about who Trish was and about who her mother was. Trish is a very, very gifted art therapist, and she has worked part-time while her children were little in one of the local disabled schools, and she helps the students there to express themselves through art, to understand their emotions and to find a sense of peace and calmness through art. It's a really beautiful occupation, and she's very good at it. Trish is now approaching a point where her children are she's looking at where she's going to send her children to school, her and her husband. And she's decided what she really wants to do, what she really craves, is to be the homeschooling mum and to raise her children in a really quite alternative way where they pursue their interests and she facilitates their interests from a homeschooling perspective. Now, Trish's mum, who was very facilitating of Trish's art and her bit left of center approach to life while she was growing up. Her mum facilitated that and was really terrific. Her mum has drawn the line with when it comes to pulling the kids or not enrolling the kids in conventional schooling. And this is where the clashes are coming. Trish's mum is a mathematics teacher in the private school system, and for her, homeschooling is just not an option and not a good choice. So they're butting heads about this continually, and it's really fracturing their relationship. So that's why Trish came to me. So I took a look at Trish's chart, and it really gave some aha moments. For a start, Trish has Uranus conjunct with Moon in her natal chart, and I'll explain what that means in just a tick. Also, at the age of 41, Trish is experiencing her Uranus opposition. This is when your natal Uranus is sitting here, and the Uranus that keeps on moving around the solar system has moved all the way around the zodiac to sit exactly opposite itself. So not only is it sitting opposite itself, it's sitting opposite her moon. So there's this extra energy that's happening. The Uranus opposition is a midlife crisis opposition that brings about liberation usually and radical change for us. And for Trish, this is being triggered through this clash with her mother, the moon representing the mother figure in her life. So it's a cyclical thing. It will pass, it will ease, and it will come out the other side where Trish is liberated and probably empowered, but it's not going to come without a bit of in the meantime. That's what I saw happening for Trish. But let me explain to you a little bit more about what a Uranus moon actually means in the natal chart. Well, firstly, Uranus is a planet of stimulation, and in a Uranus moon conjunction, this is when the moon, which rules now I want to say this right, hypothalamus. I'm not a medical professional, so I hope I'm saying that right. But the moon rules the hypothalamus, and it's a gland that is regulates for us our attachments, and particularly parenting attachments, our attachments to our children and to our parents. It also regulates our sense of security. So in terms of, our food, our sleep patterns, anything to do with our sense of safety, pardon me, in the world. It can also influence thirst and fatigue. So all those things ruled by this gland and the moon. That's obviously being stimulated for Trish with the conjunction and the opposition happening for her at this time. If you've got this position where the moon is conjunct Uranus in the natal chart, they were together in the sky at the time you were born. Because of this energy, you may feel a lot of upheavals with regards to relationships in life. Now that's parental and also your partnership relation. You might experience a lot of reversals and a lot of liberating experiences that sometimes can come through crisis, as Trish is currently experiencing. What Trish wants most, and what everybody with this position wants most, is to feel that they are an integral and valued part of either a family unit, a community, or their society at large. That's what they want, represented by the moon with their needs. However, with Uranus there, it's always going to be something that's difficult to achieve, because the moon represents our emotions and our attachments to the familiar, to our heritage, to our roots and families. And the Uranus represents our detachment, our stepping back and looking at society from a big overall perspective, rather than that intimate emotional perspective. So that there's this push-pull of the energy that's happening, and that can be quite difficult energy to handle, really, because they are such different. They have such different needs, the Uranus and Moon. So yeah, Trish is experiencing this desire at the moment to want to be part of her family and valued by her family, but equally she wants to be independent, make her own choices, and follow her own route to liberation and her own family life, and she wants to be respected for that. So there's this real tension that's happening, especially with Uranus opposing the moon. But the purpose of this transit is to liberate us. So there's going to be some, and I explained to Trish, there will be some sort of soul liberation that comes out of this transit, even though it's quite traumatic for her at the moment. So what else does Moon Uranus represent? Well, the moon represents our nurturing parent. Now, in traditional times, this was the mother figure, but we live in liberated times, and that can often be the father figure as well, that he may have been the more maternal of the two. In Trish's case, we are talking about the mother, and often when the moon is representing the maternal figure and you've got it with Uranus, the maternal parental figure may have been somewhat emotionally detached and removed, not present, not investing at all in the parenting role, or they may have been somewhat eccentric. And in a sense, Trish's mother was a little bit eccentric. She was a bit Einstein-like, if you like, with her mathematics and her very mathematical, formulaic approach to life. There's a system, this is what works, this is how you do it, and there's no room for the emotional, the flowing, the artistic and the expressive side. So she was a very regulated woman, and for Trish that felt quite different to herself. So with this position, yes, we have our parents can be either emotionally distant or somewhat eccentric, brilliant but eccentric. Aspects to the natal moon by an outer planet such as Uranus, they can be, or they make the experience highly personal, because the outer planets Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus represent our inner psyche, our inner self. They're a bit like the unseen part of the iceberg, you know, a big, big, whopping big part of who we are, but unseen. The 7 visible planets often represent our physical manifestation and what we experience in the physical realm. But the 3 planets that are invisible to the naked eye are much more of our inner psychological experience. So when they're conjunct the planet of emotion, being the moon, that means our emotions are highly attuned, they're highly sensitive, they're highly psychically or psychologically developed and responsive. And that's the case with Uranus Moon. Often it's seen that people with this position are really psychic. They have abilities to just get what's happening in their energy around them. They pick up on things in other people intuitively. They understand where people are coming from almost without them having to even say a word. They know what's happening because they pick up on the energy of the other person. They're also, Uranus rules astrology, so people with this position make fabulous astrologers because they come at astrology from a very intuitive point of view and understand the emotions of their clients and are able to really interpret that well through their knowledge, because Uranus is part of rules the sign of Aquarius, which is all about the mind and knowledge. An air sign, they can incorporate the emotion of the client with the knowledge of astrology. So it's very powerful for that as well. And in Trisha's case, she's working with art therapy, and part of that, I mean, there's other elements in the chart that contribute to her ability there, but her ability to get in touch with her clients' emotions and help draw those emotions out through self-expression and individuality and uniqueness, that's also part of the Uranus Moon conjunction working subtly in her chart. And she's a very, very good art therapist. So again, these opposing energies are seen because the moon represents our heritage, our lineage, our past, often our past lives as well. It's a karmic signal in the chart. And Uranus represents tomorrow, the future, what's going to happen. Here it comes. It's energy that's anticipatory. And so they're very push-pull kind of energy, very contradictory kind of energy. So there can be a bit of inattention there with people with this placement. With this placement, there are endless possibilities for change and growth and you know, continual maturing and evolving in the life of this person. However, it often comes at the expense of the comfort factor, the familiar, the heritage, what they know, what they feel safe in. So you may feel, if you have this position, many experiences of crisis that lead you to a higher state of being, but perhaps cause you to disconnect little by little from the traditional, you know, known path. What you, as Trisha's experiencing, she's pulling away from that traditional schooling model in order to embrace the new, the tomorrow, the unknown almost, a new way of doing schooling, a radical way of schooling her children. Uranus is all about breaking the established patterns and the way we've done things. And Trisha's really embracing that beautifully, actually. She's using that energy very well to set new paradigms for her family, and she's supported in that by her husband, which is fantastic. And her children, you know, they are responding to this radical new way of doing parenting. Uranus, the radical planet, with Moon, the planet of nurturing and caring. So she's really embodying that Uranus Moon energy beautifully within her family. People with this position, they're not drawn to doing things in the super traditional manner. Yes, Trish wants to stay home and homeschool her children, and her partner is going to be the breadwinner, but her way of doing schooling is where the radicalization comes in. She's going to take a very unique approach and a very hands-on, um, full investment approach into schooling and family life that isn't seen so much in society any longer. And with this position, there's a real, almost a rebelling against tradition, a need for space and a need for personal inner freedom to to express, to explore, to understand, all those things. A real need for independence is seen with people with this placement, and that can be difficult in relationships, particularly if you need your space and your freedom in relationship, and your partner is someone who needs your presence and your investment, continual investment. Trish is really, really lucky. Her partner also appreciates his space and his freedom as well, and they work together well as a unit in that way, because they're complementary. They both like to have their independent friendship groups. They pursue their independent careers and their independent interests, and yet they support one another in that. They love one another in that, and they facilitate one another's independence. It's a very beautiful relationship. Also, with Trish undertaking the homeschooling option, um, she's endeavoring to allow an openness and a freedom in her children's lives. And this is also very Uranus Moon conjunction. In homeschooling, she's not going to follow a regimented pattern of here's our lessons for today, this is how we do it. She's instead going to do what's, I think, referred to as unschooling, where the children, are allowed to have their interest for the week. For example, oh, let's learn about gold panning today, as another of my friends does with her children. Let's learn about gold panning, and off we'll go to the historical center and learn about how to do gold panning. Or I want to learn how to sew this week, so let's learn to sew. And it's very much open and free and liberated way of learning that is very Uranus Moon. Now, the moon is a karmic planet. It indicates what's happened for us in past lives, and when it's conjunct Uranus, it's representative of a very disrupted past life in some way, whether there was a disjointed family life, whether there was separation, whether there was you were born in times of revolution or rebelliousness politically around you. It can take many manifestations, but basically family life in past lives for people with this position was incredibly disrupted. Some house positions will indicate more trauma than others. Some house positions may indicate more revolution and political activism than another. So it's different for everybody depending on the house placement, but generally there would have been some disruptive family experience in a past life with this position. This now leads to a deep-seated restlessness within the individual, in this case Trish, because there's this need to break free from what happened in the past and establish something new. Perhaps there might be a drive for security because security wasn't present in the past life, or there may be a feeling like your security might be ripped out from underneath you at any moment. So you want to establish a bit of solidity, solidness in your life experience now. So that's what Trish is seeking to do with having her schooling at home. There is almost a sense of control there. Yes, it's free and open way of doing school, but there's also a safety. You're home, we're secure, this is our family, and that is representative of a breaking away from past life disruptions. Trish wants her life in this instance, this life experience, soul journey for her is about dealing with that distress from past lives and that disruption that was present in a past life. She's trying to balance that now in this life. And she's doing a good job of it too. So all those things represent what's happening for people with a Uranus Moon conjunction in their chart and what it represents. So if we have this, how do we heal from the past life trauma, or the past life disruption, I should say, that it represents? And how do we handle this highly erratic Uranian moon push-pull kind of energy that's now present in who we are this lifetime? Well, firstly, number one thing, if you notice you have psychic abilities or intuitive downloads, go with it, allow it, accept it, in fact, even enhance it. If you've got a fascination for astrology, pursue it, listen to more of Lada's videos, read more articles, get more books, go down that road and enhance that side of you, because it's there for a reason. If you're like Trish, experiencing like great creative downloads and emotional understanding through artistic expression, because Uranus is a highly creative planet, then allow that. Allow yourself creative time. Allow yourself to pursue those Uranian moon things, creativity, psychic abilities, spiritual inclinations. Go with those things. Another thing related to that is that you will need to take your flashes of insight seriously. If you have a dream and you wake up and you feel like, oh my goodness, that was so real, write it down, keep a record of it and refer to it and see what comes up from that in your waking reality. Other ways you can do that is to draw a picture of the dream experience. Just take your psychic experiences very seriously. Express yourself to the max. And I love this one because Uranus Moon is just so unusual, so unique, so creative, and so beautiful. They've got so much to offer the world in terms of radical new insights, amazing creativity, brilliant minds and brilliant perceptive emotions. So enhance that, accept who you are, love your eccentricity, and develop it, particularly the creative side. You need to put time aside each week to really enhance that spiritual, intuitive, creative side of you. Alongside that, there may be times when you feel misunderstood, heavily misunderstood by society, or repressed by the conventionality of the society that you're in. I want to encourage you to take a stand and to be true to who you are and your creativity and your eccentricity, which is wonderful, and find groups of people that will support you. As a note aside, I experienced an intense Uranus period of about 7 years, which I'll talk about in another video at some time, where my whole identity really went through a radical transformation, and I got involved with, and am still partially involved with, the rockabilly subculture, which was fantastic for encouraging individuality and creative expression. So if you find a group of people that can do that for you, that can help you to be radical, amazing you, then spend time with them, invest in those groups of people, and really you will really grow from that. So during the opposition, Uranus Moon opposition, around your early 40s, 40 to 42, 43, this is a time you need to be really kind to yourself, because all these things, these relationships with the mother, with the family, your identity, your emotional state are all going to be triggered. Expect at this time to feel some form of detachment from your loved ones. you need to allow this and realize that the zodiac, the planets, they move in seasonal cycles. This is a cycle you're experiencing that's going to take you up the spiral of greater consciousness to a new level. So allow it. Okay, you're feeling detached at the moment, like Trish is with her mother, but in 6 months to a year, the relationship with the mother will come at a whole new level. There may be some kinds of ceremonies you can undertake to see you through those times, to dispel the frustrating energy from your life, all that sort of thing. Write to me if you would like some ideas for how to do that. But this is a time when you can expect to feel detached, and that's okay. And you can know that it's an energy that it's gonna pass eventually, and will lead you to a higher personal realization and a different, renewed relationship, a liberated relationship with your loved ones, particularly the nurturing parent. Sometimes our parents don't want us to grow up. Sometimes our parents don't want us to be liberated and fly free, because it means that they're no longer required, they're no longer needed, and their role is changing and diversifying and becoming something different, and that can be threatening to our parents. And when they see our children going through this, I'm going to homeschool my kids and this is what it's going to look like, and that's threatening to them and their knowledge of how life should be done. This transit is all about stepping into our truth though, and we need to honor that. It's a time to reinvent ourselves, to discover who we truly are and embrace that. And that is going to mean some disconnection from parents and their perception of how we should do life and what's the right way to do life. And that's okay. It's a natural part of growing up. I mean, funny to think that, hey, we're still growing up at age 40, 41, 42. But that's what it is. And it's about allowing yourself to grow up and stand in your own power, be independent, be free, and align with that happening when Uranus is going through its opposition transit at this age. So what did this all mean for Trish? Well, this was a month ago that I spoke to her, and she's decided that she's going to remove herself from her mother for a period of a few months. Not on my advice, this was of her own understanding after we talked about these energies that are at play. So she's going to have a bit of space from her mother, and she's going to continue to pursue the homeschooling route. That's her choice, and her husband stands by her in that. And she realizes that her mother is going to need to learn to accept that, because she's standing in who she is, what her convictions are, and her desires for how to do life and how to do family. So it's really beautiful for Trish. I can't tell you how it has played out, because it's in the process of playing out. But Trish, and this is what Uranus opposition transit's all about. It's all about becoming liberated and standing in our truth. And that's what Trish is doing, and she's doing it powerfully, and she's doing it really well. And hopefully in the next 6 months to a year, as the transit sort of winds up, she'll be able to find a restored relationship with her mother that's at a higher level. But that very much depends on how her mother approaches Trish's newfound liberation. So I hope you enjoyed this story of the Uranus Moon and how it plays out in some people's lives. Maybe you resonated with something that I said and could identify that in your own life. Just know that if you're going through a Uranus transit at the moment, you are going through a period of developing who you are and liberating who you are and becoming more of yourself. It's a beautiful time and a beautiful energy. May you know your own truth. May you know your own freedom. May you know your own liberty, because that's Uranus's gift to us. Thank you.